Good morning, everybody. It's Iain at RTO here. Hope you're having a good day. Here we go again with the music marathon. It's a little bit shorter than the normal 15 that we do for marathon. We're at 13 because this is a part of the Sammy Hagar story, and to fit it all in, I thought I'd bung this one in on a marathon Wednesday. We're looking at Sammy Hagar's solo albums. This is part 3. Now, the ones I haven't included are the ones he did with the Warbeaters, or whatever they're called, and the Full Circle, because we're doing a separate videos for them. So today we're looking at 13 solo albums. They're all great. I mean, I'm a big fan of Sammy Hagar before he even joined Van Halen. Obviously, I liked him when he was in Montrose, and then I sort of started following him about 82, 83 when I realised that he'd released some solo stuff. So I've been a big fan since I was a teenager, and I still like listening to him today. He hasn't put a bad one out. There's ones I prefer, of course. But before we start that, I checked the subscribers this morning, and we're now up to 497. 3 more to get to the magic 500. So you are watching this for the first time, do me a big favour and subscribe so we can get to 500 before next week when we start the live stream again. I did check the views for the whole channel though since we started, and we're up to about 93,000 now, so we're chugging along our way to 100,000. Anyway, let's get back to what we're here for today, and that's looking at Sammy Hagar's solo albums. So I said we got 13, so we're going to start, of course, at number 13, which happens to be the 13th album. It was released in 2014, and it's called Lite Roast. Now, this is an acoustic unplugged sort of album, and it's just acoustically recorded versions of some of Hagar's previous release songs, and it covers his practically all his career and all the people he's worked with. So on here we've got Sammy Hagar on lead vocals and guitar, Vic Johnson on guitars and backing vocals, and Andre Thierry on accordion on the first and the 11th track. So the songs on here, I won't go into much detail. It's Red Voodoo, which is a song from, I can't remember which album now, Red Voodoo album, there we go. Which is, I think it will be one of the Warbeaters. One Slip is another song from Warbeaters' Living It Up album. Then we get a Van Halen song, and it's probably the best acoustic song on here, Finish What You Started from US10. It's really good. Then we get Eagles Fly from I Never Say Goodbye. Good version. The Love, another song from Red Voodoo. Father Son from Sammy Hagar and Friends, which we'll talk about later. Then we get Dreams from 5150, not a bad version of that. And then we get Deeper Kind of Love, another song from the Warbeater period, 10th from 1013. Who Has the Right from Marching to Mars. Halfway to Memphis, Not for Sale, and a version of Personal Jesus, which is on Sammy Hagar and Friends. Isn't a bad album. I don't dislike this one. It's a nice album. Don't listen to it a great lot, but it's a nice one to listen to now and again. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5.5. Okay, then, coming in at number 12, we have the 7th album released in 1982, and it's 3 Lock Box. On here we've got Sammy Hagar, Bill Church from Montrose, of course, Gary Pill. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's carrying his name spelled Pihl. Dave Lauster on drums. Special guests on here: Jonathan Kane from Journey, Mike Reno doing vocals on Remember the Heroes, Alan Pascal on keyboards, Tom Kelly doing additional keyboards. First track on here is the title track, 3 Lot Box. I love this track. I love that chorus. It's a great little rock song. It's a great vocal from Sammy on that. Really good track. Remote Love. I love that opening riff on this. But it's not the best track on the album, but I do like that opening riff. It's really good. Then we get Remember the Heroes. It's just a typical early 80s rock track. Great vocal from Mike Reno on this. Really strong track. You know, if you like your 80s stuff. Then we get Your Love Is Driving Me Crazy. Not one of my favourites. This is very 80s and it hasn't dated very well. Then we get my favourite track on here, and it's a thing called In My Room. I think this is just a very interesting song. It's got a nice riff to it. The guitar work is really good. Even the keyboards, even though it's 80s, sounds pretty good on there. But what is the best bit of this track is the solo on it. It is a brilliant solo. Then we get Rise of the Animal. Great track. Some great riffs. Okay, the 80s keyboard can be chucked away, but the rock track itself is pretty good. Then we get I Won't Change a Thing. One of the weaker tracks on the album. Not a particular fan of that one. Growing Up. The guitar riff and the solo are pretty awesome on that track. One of my favourites. Never Give Up. Written by Keith Olsen, so you're going to get some commercial rock, and you do. And although it's very commercial, I think it's a good track. I Don't Need Your Love. Great little track this is. It almost is Van Halen. It's got them, that sort of beat to it, that sort of sound, and Sammy sounds great on that. He's a fine vocal. Last track on the album, that was. It's a very solid album. There's nothing wrong with it. There's a couple of tracks I'm not too keen on, but on the whole, it's an enjoyable album, and I do play this one a little bit. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 11, then we go to 1987 now, and the 9th album, I Never Say Goodbye. This was his first solo album since 1984 and was released while he was in Van Halen, of course. It's one of them obligational contract records to get in, you know, so he could get out of the contract. So this was put together actually in 10 days. So on here we've got Sammy Hagar on lead vocals and guitars, a guest appearance by Eddie Van Halen on Eagles Fly, Jess Harms, who he's worked with a bit, David Lauster on the drums again, some additional musicians on here. We've got Albany Golten on keyboards and percussion, and Omar Hakim on drum drums on one track. First track is called When the Hammer Falls. Good sounding track. Great vocal from Sammy. Some really nice guitar riffs on that. Pretty solid track, actually. Hands and Knees. Great vocal from Sammy. Just solid rock. Give to Live. Oh, it's a little bit wishy-washy. One of them love songs that you just don't want to hear on a Sammy Hagar album. Boys Night Out. The only bad thing about this is them horrible keyboards. Get rid of them and it'd be even a heavier track. Returning Home, very 1980s. Feel a track, get rid, move on. Then we get Standing on the Same Old Crossroads. Now this is a very short, just under 2 minutes long. It's got a great solo for a very short song and some great riffs and a vocal from Sammy. Then we get Privacy, which the previous track goes straight into this, and this is a brilliant rock track, one of the best tracks on the album. Standing at the Crossroads, Privacy, really good together. Great little track. Back to You, certainly got a Van Halen feel to this. Nothing wrong with that though. Then we get Eagles Fly, my favourite track. Not just because Eddie's playing on it. I think it's a really strong track, but Eddie's guitar playing on it is pretty solid. What they're going to say now, great little bluesy rocker from here, some nice guitar work, really nice song to win the album. Okay, when these people get these, they have to throw out an album because of a contract. Normally they're pretty wishy-washy and there's no couldn't care less, they're just going through the motions. But considering this was put together in 10 days, it's really good. It's a great little album, and I think it's one of the better albums from them contractual to get out of contracts I've heard. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 6.1. Okay, then coming in at number 10 then, we go to the debut album from 1976, 9 on a 10 scale. On here we've got Sammy Hagar on vocals and guitar, Bill Church, his old cohort from Montrose, Alan Fitzgerald on the keyboards, a certain Ainsley Dunbar on the drums, and on backing vocals as a certain Bob Welsh, ex-Fleetwood Mac. First track is Keep On Rockin'. The backing vocals on here are not very good. You don't, if it's Bob Welsh, it doesn't sound like. Sounds more like a female backing vocal. Doesn't sound right. I'm not very keen on this, although it should be a good track. The backing vocals sort of spoil it. Then we get Urban Gorilla, really good track. Love the bass line here from Bill Church. It's really got that Montrose feel to it. It's an excellent track. Then we get a track by Van Morrison, Flamingos Fly. Not a bad version of this song. It's just got that Caribbean feel to it with the steel drum. Nothing wrong with that. Then we get China. Now this is written by Bob Welsh. Great little track here, written by Bob. That's a really good song. Silver Lights. Never been a big fan of this one. It's a little bit too disjointed for me. There's some the rocky bits are good, but everything else is all over the place. It's not very coherent. Then we get a track called All American, my favourite track on the album. Great vocal from Sammy. Just a terrific rock track. Really, really good. Confession, Please Come Back. Good solid little rock track with a great guitar solo from Sammy. Great guitar solo. Young Girl Blues. This is a Donovan song, of course. I think this is so much better than Donovan's. It's got a little bit more oomph to it. Then we get Rock and Roll Romeo. Sounds something like he would have done with Montrose. It's just a classic rock track. Okay, a solid debut album. Little bit of experimentation like you do when you go out on your own when you've left a established band. Some of the tracks worked. Some of the covers are pretty good on this. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6.2. Okay then, coming in at number 9, we have the fourth album, released in 1979, Street Machine. On here we've got Sammy Hagar and Bill Church, Gary Phil, whatever how he pronounces it, Chuck Ruff, what a name, on drums, Steve Douglas on saxophone, and Mark Jordan on the piano. First track on here is a track called, that's not what I wanted to do, I have just hit a button and my script has disappeared. Right, hold on, there it is. So Growing Pains is the first track. I love that opening riff. It's got a great little Bill Church bass line that is terrific. It sort of grooves the way this song is put together, and it's a great vocal as well from Sammy. Terrific track. Child to Man. I like that. This is a very, very let's say slower rock track. It's got a terrific riff in this. I don't know who does the lead guitar, whether it's Gary or Sammy, but the guitar solo is brilliant on this. Really, really good. Let me get my favourite track on. It's one of my favourite tracks by Sammy Hagar. It's Trans Am Highway Wonderland. I just love the drumming on this. It is absolutely brilliant. Again, Sammy is on fire. It's a great, great track. Feels Like Love. Again, some solid driving riffs here. Typical sort of Sammy song. Lots of energy. Great track. Plain Jane. It's okay. The start of it's a little bit different, and then when that bass comes in, it changes. The acoustic guitar is really good on this. It's a great little track, although it starts off and you wonder what we're going to get, but it is once it gets going, it's terrific. Never Say Die, another strong track. Great opening riff. There's so many great opening riffs on these Sammy albums. The drumming's growth, and this proves how a good singer Sammy is. You don't have to sing hard rock. It's just another really fine performance. The Planet's on Fire, Burning Hell. Oh wow, one of my favourite tracks. Again, it's just absolutely brilliant rock track. Great song. Wounded in Love. Again, lovely riffs on this. Slow rock track. Sammy is pretty good on this one. Falling in Love. Never been a fan of this. It's a bit poppy and a bit radio friendly. Straight to the Top. This is just pure rock and roll. Basic rock and roll with a pumping bass line. Great way to end the album. I love this album. Okay, it's only at number 9, but there are so many good albums. But the phenomenal work on these solo albums is sometimes very underlooked. People should go and check out his solo stuff. And this is a great album, and I'll play this one a lot. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 6.4, although it's very low down in his ranking. It's still a fantastic album. I need a sip of coffee. Bear with me 2 seconds. Okay, then coming in at number 8, we go to the 6th album. Another album released in 1982. It's called... Oh, there's something wrong with my thing today. Stand in Hampton. On here we got Sammy Hagar, Gary Phil, Bill Church and Dave Lauster or Lauster. First track is called I Fall in Love Again. A little bit commercial, but it's a solid track and I don't mind it. There's Only One Way to Rock. Great track, one of my favourites. Again from Sammy. It's just a great little rocker. Really heavy in places. Good track. Baby's on Fire. Solid track. Ripping riffs in this one. It's great stuff. Can't Get Loose. Keyboards a little bit wishy-washy. Get rid of them keyboards and it'd be a better track. Heavy Metal does what it says on the tin. Great rocky riffs. Terrific track. Baby It's You, a little overproduced. It's a good guitar solo, but it's smoothed out. Someone's got the very fine sandpaper out and took all the edges off it. Just play it as it is, rock and roll raw. Then we get a track called Surrender. Drums have been cleaned up. Don't clean drums up. Well, I know I've said this time and time again, but yeah. Then we get Inside Looking In. Just a mediocre song on this, not the best one. Sweet Hitchhiker, love this. Great drumming, best rocker on the album. And then he does a version of A Piece of My Heart. Okay, not a bad version. But there's only one person that can sing this, of course. That's Janis Joplin. But I'll give, you know, when you're going to do a song that Janis Joplin made famous, you've got to have some balls to do it. And Sammy did it, and he didn't do a bad version. It's not the best. It's not as good as Janis's, but he does a half decent version. Bit of a mixed bag on this. You got some really good heavy tracks, and then you got some of them horrible sounding 80 stuff on it. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 6.5. Okay, then coming in at number 7. For one of the later albums now. This is the 11th, and it's from 2008, and it's Cosmic Universe Fashion. On here we've got some interesting people. We've got Sammy Hagar on lead vocals and guitar, a certain Michael Anthony on bass guitar and vocals on a few tracks, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, of course, who does vocals on one track, Billy Duffy on track, plays guitars on a track, got Max Sorum on drums on one track, Bootsy Collins played as backing vocals, Dee Castrovano on drums, Neil Schon, who we worked with later on a couple of tracks, Dave Lauster as usual does most of the drumming, Vic Johnson, who he does a lot of work with, Mona Ganeda, who part of the War Heaters, and that's who's playing it. On the first track is Cosmic Universe Fashion. This is a little bit different. It's a bit of a quirky track. Not for me, but I do like the guitar solo on it. I don't know who's playing on that. It's none of the guests. So it's probably Vic Johnson or actually Sammy himself. Then we get Psycho Vertigo. Love this track. The highlight for this though is Neil Schon's guitar solo on it. It's absolutely brilliant. Great little track. Peephole. Another good track. Some more great Neil Schon guitar playing on this. That's an excellent track. Then we get Loud. The guitar build up on this is great. Excellent track. And then we get a cover of a song by the Beastie Boys, Fight for Your Right to Party. It's a terrible version. Absolutely horrible. I'm not a great fan of the Beastie Boys, full stop. But this, yeah. Okay, next track is Switch on the Light. Great song. But what makes it even better, we have Billy Gibbons on it. That's a terrific vocal from Billy. Great. It's almost a ZZ Top track and it's brilliant. When the Sun Don't Shine. Bit country, but it's alright. Then we get 2, 4, 3, 6, 5. It sounds like an Extreme track. Than a Sammy Hagar. There is a little bit of connection there, of course. And I think Michael Anthony and of course Gary Cherone. It just sounds more like an Extreme track. I'm on a Roll. Great track. Nice guitar work. And then we get Dreams Carbo. It's a sort of a live acoustic version of Dreams and Carbo Warbo. It's not bad. Not brilliant. It's just, I don't know if they just, I'll just bung this on anyway. well, it ends the album. It's not a bad album. It has got some good tracks on it, and it is quite enjoyable. Highlights for me on this are, of course, Billy Gibbons and Neil Schon. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6.8. Okay, then coming in at number 6, go to 1980, fifth album, Danger Zone. We have got on here Sammy Hagar on the vocals and guitar, Bill Church as ever on the bass, Gary Pihill, or whatever his name is, on guitar and keyboards, Chuck Ruff's back on the drums, keyboards on here done by Jeff Workman, and great guest musicians on here. We have got Mr. Stephen Perry doing some background vocals on Level Money, and Neil Schon does the guitar solos on Level Money. Talking of Level Money, it's the first track on the album. Great track, great bass line, great guitar solo, of course, and yes, you can hear Steve Perry. And when you got two members of Journey and two ex-members of Montrose, you're going to have a good track, and it's a good little track. 20th Century Man, another solid rocker. Oh, some great guitar work on this. That's what I like about Sammy's albums. The guitar work is always great. Miles from Boredom, one of them little slow rockers with a little bit of blues in it. It's a great track, and again, great little riffs. Then we got Mummy Says, Daddy Says. Not a bad little track, short little rocker, nothing wrong with that. Then we get In the Night, again another track that I really like, great little rocker. Like most of them on here, it's just solid rock. Then we get The Iceman, favourite track on this album. It's a bluesy sort of sound. Some of the guitar riffs are terrific on this. Then we get Bad Reputation, nothing to do with Thin Lizzy. It's got one of these opening riffs again that's just brilliant. Just goes into a great little rock track. Love it. Then we get Heartbeat, not particularly good. One of the weaker tracks on the album. Run for Your Life, another song that I'm not keen on. A little bit lackluster. Needs a little bit more beef on that one. And we get Danger Zone. It's one of them little 40-second filler things. Don't know what that's all about. Love this album. The first 7 tracks are just solid. The last 3 sort of let it down. They're a little bit wishy-washy. I only tend to play the first 7 tracks. I don't bother with the rest. But the 7 tracks I love are brilliant. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.5. Okay, then coming in at number 5, we have the third album released in October 1977, and it's Musical Chairs. This has practically got Montrose on it. So we've got Sammy Hagar, Denny Kamasi, Bill Church, Alan Fitzgerald, and Gary Phil. It is almost, isn't it? It's almost a Montrose track album. So we got Turn Up the Music. Love this. Some great drumming from Denny. Brilliant track. It's Gonna Be Alright. Great track. A few bit of horns on this. Just add to it. Pretty good. You Make Me Crazy. Never been keen on this. I hate it when he tries to do country. You're not a country singer, Sammy. You're a rock singer. Just stick to what you're good at. Then we get my favourite track, Reckless. Great guitar solo, and I think this track's actually a forerunner of I Can't Drive 55. And we'll talk about that later, but Reckless is a terrific track. Try to Fall in Love. The strings and the piano are really well, and I think there's some flute on this as well, and it's a nice track. One of the nicer, slower tracks from Sammy. Don't Stop Me Now, nothing to do with Queen, but it's a great track. Guitar solo on this kicks. Absolutely brilliant track. Straight from the hip, kid. That electric piano on this sounds terrific. It really gives it a little bit of a funky feel to it. It's a terrific track. Hey boys, it's alright. Solid enough, but it's not one of my favourites. Someone out there, love the bass line from Bill Church, really adds to this. And that nice crisp organ sound on it is pretty cool as well. Cracking the World, again we've got that great bass line from Bill Church. It actually reminds me, the end piece of this reminds me of Pink Floyd's Sheep. Very, very similar sort of beat. It's a great way to end the album, actually. This album got some strong tracks on here. Can't fault it really. Pretty solid album. An album that I do play a lot. And I'll give this one an RTO ranking of 7.6. Okay, then coming in at number 4, we have the second album. Another album that was released in 1977, January 77, and it's called Sammy Hagar. But people call it the Red Album. It's not called the Red Album, it's called Sammy Hagar. Just because it's a red cover, if Sammy wanted to call it red, he would have done. There you go. On here again, we have got Sammy Hagar, Bill Church, Alan Fitzgerald on the keyboards, David Lerwick on guitar, Scott Matthews drums. First track is Red. Classic Sammy Hagar song. The solo is brilliant. I love that sort of chunka sound. Absolutely brilliant track. Catch the Wind, another Donovan song. And again, I prefer Sammy's version to Donovan. It's got more of a bluesy feel to it, and it's got a great solo on it as well. Cruising and Boozing, absolute killer track. The bass line again, brilliant. Free Money, which is a Patsy Smith cover. Very gutsy to do Patsy Smith, but he does a very good version. I like that Sammy. He does pick covers that you think, ooh, bit dodgy. No, he does a fine version of that. Rock and Roll Weekend, another of them great little chugga rock tracks, as I call it, with the great drums on here. Excellent track. Then we get a track called Fillmore Shuffle. It should be on a Bruce Springsteen album, to be quite honest, but Sammy does a great job. I like that. Then we get Hungry. This is a Barry Mann song, but once again Sammy does a cracking version of it, and it's much better. Then we get The Pits, another of those Sammy tracks with horns and keyboards, and it's really good. Then Love Has Found Me, a great little rock track again, great vocal from Sammy and some great riffs as ever. It's a little bit different, but I do love that keyboard, 70s keyboard, which actually adds to it. Good album. Definitely a little bit more improvement on the debut. It's more rocky. I do like this album a lot, and I do play it a lot, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 3, we've got out the 12th album released in 2013. It's one of the newer ones, and it's called Sammy Hagar and Friends. It's just Sammy songs that he's wrote, and he's got his mates in. On here we have a track called Winding Down that opens it. This is Sammy Hagar, and he's got Taj Mahal joining them on this. It's a good song. Great bluesy jam. Love it. Great little rock track. Then we get Not Going Down on here. We've got Jay Buchan, Denny Kamasi and Bill Church. Song, actually, this is a cover song written by Jay Buchan, who's Rival Sons, of course. Really good band. This is a great solo. Nice to hear Denny and Bill in the engine room. It's a terrific version of the song. Then we get Personal Jesus, obviously another cover done by Depeche Mode, and on here we've got Michael Anthony, Neil Schon and Chad Smith. So basically Chicken Foot. Bits of Chicken Foot, bits of Van Halen and bits of Journey and bits of that. I love this song. I've heard 3 good versions: the original, Def Leppard's, and of course this one. I think this is the best version actually. It's a great bass line from Michael, and Chad Smith's great on the drums. Then we get a track called Father Son, and on here we get Denny Kamasi and Aaron Hagar. That's obviously Sammy's son. Great track, great drumming from Denny Kamasi as ever. Then we get a track called Knockout, Drag Out. On here we have got Denny Kamasi again, Kid Rock and Joe Satriani. Great little track here. The guitar work from Joe and Kid Rock is pretty good. Love this track. Then we have a track called Rambling Gambling Man, which was recorded obviously by Bob Seger, and on here it's Sammy and the Warbeaters, which we'll be talking about a bit more next week, but this is much better than Bob Seger's version. It's a brilliant track. Then my favourite track on here is Bad on Fords and Chevrolets. Ronnie Dunn, written by Ronnie Dunn, he plays on this. It's a great track. Great stuff. Lovely track. And then we get Margaritaville, a song recorded by Jimmy Buffett, of course. Really good version of this. Do a great job on it. It's great. And then All We Need Is an Island. Mickey Hart from the Grateful Dead. Nancy Wilson. Love that Hawaiian feel to this. This is all grass skirt stuff. Nice to see Nancy on here and Mickey Hart from Grateful Dead. Brilliant. Then we have a track called Going Down, which was done in a live studio take. Great version of this Don Nix track. Brilliant stuff. And then we get Space Station number 5. With Satriani playing the guitars, Kamasi and Church. Great version of this. Brilliant track. Okay, I love this album. I know it's got a lot of covers on it, but it's just a truly great rock track and great album from Sammy. I love playing this. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.3. Okay, then coming in at number 2, this 10th album, Marching to Mars, and it was released in 1997. It's the first album that he'd put out since he'd left Van Halen. On here we have got Denny Kamasi on drums, Bill Church on bass. There's lots of people on here, actually, too many to mention, so I'm just going to go through some of the people. Huey Lewis plays harmonica, guitar. Some tracks are done by Slash, and then we get a certain Ronnie Montrose. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Little White Lies, the first track. Great harmonica here for Mr. Huey Lewis. I think Huey Lewis is probably one of the great harmonica players. And some good guitar work here from Slash as well. It's a really, really good track. Salvation on Sand Hill. Great track. Damon Johnson plays the solo on this, and it's terrific. Great little track. Then we have a track called Who Has the Right? Got a real nice feel to this. Sammy's vocals just haven't changed over the years much. He's still singing like he did when he was in Montrose. He's really looked after his voice. It's a terrific track. Would you do it for free? Sammy plays the guitars on this. It's really funky guitar sound. It's a great little track. Then we get a track called Leaving the Warmth of the Room. This is my favourite track because basically it is a Montrose reunion. So we've got Sammy, Ronnie, Bill and Denny, the original lineup of Montrose, and it's brilliant, and it's such a shame they never recorded an album as Montrose, but we're thankful that they come together to play on this one track, and it is the best track on the album. It is terrific. Then we get Karma, which features Matt Sorum, nice slow track, some really good track on there. Then we get On the Other Hand. I love this old style of blues. Now this is what I mean, old style. It's something like Robert Johnson would have recorded, you know, sitting down with his acoustic guitar. There's a little bit of percussion done by Mickey Hart on this. It's just great. Very basic, but a brilliant track. Then we get Both Sides Now, another great little track. Sammy plays all the guitars, plays the guitars on it. It just shows what a good guitar player he is. Then we get The Yogi's So High, I'm Stoned, another then bluesy guitar riffs and a great little track. Amnesty Is Granted. This is a song, obviously, if you remember, that was written by Sammy for Meat Loaf, which appeared on the Welcome to the Neighbourhood album. Sammy does not a bad version of this, isn't he? He's allowed to sing it because he wrote it, but I think Meat Loaf sings it better. It's still a good track though. Both versions are really good. And then Marching to Mars, great track to end the album. Mickey Hart's doing some of the drumming and programming on here. It's a hooky track. Sammy again plays all the guitars. It is brilliant. I love this album. It was so nice to hear him do an album after leaving Van Halen. What do I do? I'll get me mates in. They'll come and help me make an album, and they all did a great job. But the highlight of this, of course, is hearing Montrose, the original Montrose, playing one track. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.4. My number one. It's my number one for one reason, because this is the very first thing I ever brought Fiverr. Sammy Hagar. I'd heard some of the stuff, but being a poor schoolboy when they come out, I hadn't got much money. But when I started work back in 1984, I used to buy an album, and this album came out in the summer of July 1984, and I went and brought it. And it's VOA, of course, 8th album. This is the last album he did before he joined Van Halen, and it's a great album. I've got lots of memories of this. So on here we've got Sammy Hagar, lead vocals and lead guitar, Gary Phil, rhythm guitar and backing vocals, Jesse Harms on keyboards and backing vocals, Bill Church, David Lawster and Ted Templeton on percussion. Opens up with my favourite track by Sammy, I Can't Drive 55. It's a belter. Even the keyboards are very 80s, but they really suit this track. It's a great rock track. Love it to bits. Swept Away. The opening riffs on this are terrific. That great bass line from Bill Church, as always. It's just really good. Even though the production's 80s, it just sounds great. Rock Is My Blood, another great track. The drums on this sound so good for the 1980s. Okay, we got some of that 80s keyboard, but it doesn't spoil the track because the guitars are great. Sammy singing his socks off. Great track. Two Sides of Love. Probably the least favourite track on this album. I've never been a great fan of this. This is just too much 80s for me. Then we get a great little track called Dick in the Dirt. Funny title, but it's a great track with a great bass line from Bill Church. Then we get the title track, VOA. Great rocker from Sammy. He's on fire on this. Absolutely belting it out. It's a great track. Don't Make Me Wait. Solid enough track. Very 80s. You can keep that one. Burning the City Down. I love this. Even though it's 80s, it's a really, really great track. Some great riffs in this. Even the keyboard sounded on this. It's a great way to end the album. I think out of all the rock albums of the mid-80s that came out, this is one of the best ones. I think something about Sammy, and it went on to prove when he was in Van Halen, they took the sound of the time and they made it sound good. Sammy definitely had the voice of the 80s rock. It wasn't cleaned up. He was let to do naturally, and there's some lots of catchy tunes on this. And this is number one because it just, when I brought it, I just thought it was brilliant. There's a lot of people out there that think, well, this is not the best album, but I think it's because I've got so many memories of this, and it's probably, and it is an enjoyable album all the way through. Really, there's a couple of tracks I'm not keen on, but the rest are just good rockers at the time. I was 18, coming up 18. So I think when this came out, I was 17. So it was just great to hear an album by Sammy. I played it to death through '84. I still play it now. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, that's part 3 of Sammy. Next week we're going to look at the albums he made with the Warburg-Readers, or whatever they're called. We've sort of touched on them today, but next week we'll look at the albums I think they made 4. That's all for today. I'll be back tomorrow though, with the last of the What's On Next Week little videos. I might continue them because it's a nice way to people can see what's going on without looking down the live stream video, which is coming back next week, of course. Looking forward to that. But what we got for you tomorrow? Well, Thursday is Battle of the Debuts, and tomorrow we're going to go way back into the delves of rock and roll for 2 artists. Without them, we wouldn't be listening to some great music today. So we're going to have a look at the debut albums of Elvis Presley and the Peter Pan of pop, Mr. Cliff Richard. Album artwork tomorrow is Holland's finest rock band, Golden Earring. The little video, what's going on next week. And don't forget, 4th of August, we are just a week away for the rebirth of the live stream. So have a good day, everybody. I will see you all tomorrow.